You may be wondering, well, what about climbing grades? Doesn't that tell you everything? Beginner grades are typically between V0 and V2. Intermediate grades are V3 through V6. Advanced is typically V7 through V10. And then you have your pros, which is between your V11 and V13. And then you have your top 1%, which is anything V14 and above. But what's the actual difference between a beginner, intermediate, advanced, and pro climber? That's what we're going to talk about right now. Hi, I'm Sarah from Sin Edition, and welcome to 3 Minute Thursday, the show where we talk about all things climbing in under 3 minutes every Thursday. There are 4 main differences between these different levels of climbing, and so we're going to talk about that right now. Let's put time on the clock and get started. First one is body movement, and as a beginner, you'll recognize that the body movement is pretty strange. Unless you're doing an up and down ladder, you find that pretty much every move is challenging. Once you get into the intermediate levels, you start to recognize there's actually technique involved with body movements, such as flagging and things like that. So your body is getting better at the movement, but you still have to put focus into that kind of movement, and it doesn't come naturally. For advanced, however, this movement does become more natural. However, sometimes you still have to think about it. When it comes to pros, they intuitively know what movement they need to make, and they don't even think about it. It just works for them every single time because they've done that movement 100, 1,000, 10,000 times already in the past. Number 2 is strength. As a beginner, you really don't need that much strength. You most certainly don't need to be able to do any pull-ups or anything like that. You just need to be able to hold your body on the wall. So being able to hold onto a pole, for example, is as strong as you need to get. When it comes to intermediate climbing, usually you can do about 1 to 2 pull-ups, but there isn't a need for any more strength than that. Once you get into looking at advanced climbers, they typically can do multiple pull-ups in a row. They're usually training for strength. They're able to do weighted pull-ups, for example. And then you have the pro climbers who not only can do a little bit of weight, they can do their entire body weight in pull-ups, and a lot of them can do one-armed pull-ups, which is insane but absolutely necessary when you get into that hard of a route. Number 3 is flexibility. Flexibility is a little bit different because some people are born more flexible than others. As a beginner, you don't really need to be flexible, but beginners find themselves ranging from either really flexible to not flexible at all. Intermediates, you're starting to notice that flexibility would be helpful, but it's often not necessary at this point. For advanced climbers, there tends to be a focus on flexibility, especially when it comes to your shoulder flexibility and in your leg flexibility. Pro climbers, on the other hand, spend a significant amount of their day every single day stretching, both dynamically and statically, so that they can be as flexible as possible. You'll see this all the time in the competitions where a climber is sitting quite comfortably in the splits position. It is very enjoyable to watch, insane to imagine, but maybe one day I'll get there. Number 4, and probably the most important part, is their experience. A beginner climber tends to only have a couple of sessions of climbing under their belt, maybe up to 6 months, maybe even a year. Intermediate climbers tend to have 1 or 2 years, or even 3, but that's dependent on how frequently they climbed throughout those years. As an advanced climber, they usually have more than 4 years of experience, and they've climbed quite often during that period. And then when it comes to pros, this is all over the place. Some pro climbers have been climbing for the last decade, whereas some pro climbers were naturally gifted and got into the pro leagues within a few years. That being said, you can tell the difference between a pro climber who's been climbing for 15 years and a pro climber who's been climbing for 5 years. Comment highlight for this week is from Kayun Yoon. Thank you so much for that comment. It really means a lot to me. These videos take a lot of effort to create, so I appreciate you sharing your experience in the comments. And I'm excited for you to continue your journey in the bouldering world. It is an exciting one, so keep up the good work and have fun. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with at least one of your climbing friends. Thanks so much in advance.